Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Um, welcome. Welcome to another guided meditation. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Dr. Brad. And whether you're joining me here on live stream through my website or if you're here on Clubhouse, thank you for joining me today. Appreciate you being here today. So, today, as we come to our mindfulness meditation, I invite us to think about what brings us here and our practice. The other day, I was having some conversations with a few of my patients, and the idea of meditation came up as if I meditate, if I practice mindfulness, then I'm really not engaging. It's a way of disengaging from the world. And I'd like to offer a counter to that our meditation, our mindfulness practice is not a way of turning away from the things that are going on in the world. I'm here in Washington. If you're on the West Coast, we've been having fires. If you're other places, you've been having floods. There's so many climate issues, there's political issues, there's work issues, family issues. The practice of meditation and mindfulness is not to say, ooh, I am going to dissociate from all of that. I'm going to ignore all of that. As I heard one of my meditation teachers say once, we're not turning away from the world, we're turning away from our suffering. And that's what we're going to be doing today in this practice. We're cultivating the skills at learning to discern our suffering, what we wind up reacting to. Our suffering is connected to our habitual reactions. How many times do you, myself, say, oh, I was triggered. Oh, that person triggered me. This triggered me. And one of the easiest remedies is then to turn away from that person or that thing. But as you know, that's often not the main goal for healing. It's not the answer for healing to turn away from those things. Now, there are times, yes, there are times when something is not serving us, it's causing us harm, and we take mindful action to move away from it. That's a mindful choice. Instead, what we're doing is turning away from our suffering, which is our conditioned response to it. So, what we're going to be doing is practicing the skills of mindfulness, and I'm going to be talking about some of our delusions, our desires, aversion, or anger, and indifference, and how our conditioned response to those create much of our suffering. So, to begin, I invite you to find a comfortable position. And the reason I'm saying that is I'm adjusting in my seat every time I say that, is we want the body to be as upright, steadfast, and at ease as possible so that while we do this practice, our mind isn't drawn to discomfort. So if you need shift in your seat, find some support for your back, take a sip of water, sip of my matcha, and then feel yourself in the seat. Notice, as I already said, we want to turn away from those things. As you allow your attention to settle in the seat, there is the goal of shifting so you're at more ease, more comfortable. But there's also that mental chatter discomfort. Oh, that's just a little too hard. Oh, I want that to be a little different. And that keeps us from really experiencing. So as you settle here and take a few falling out breaths, breathe in, always in through the nose, but if you want for these next few, just out through the mouth. And feel yourself settle. Do you allow yourself to settle? Is it safe to settle? So coming here, settling. And let's just turn towards the breath for a moment. When we do this practice, we do anchor. We start practicing awareness with an anchor. But the anchor is just a starting point. So it's just a starting point. We anchor to our breath. And we anchor to the body. So note any tendency to want the breath to be a certain way. We're not just practicing mindfulness here. It's not just about the mind. It's about the body. Mindful embodiment. As you anchor on this breath, can you anchor to the body's experience of breathing? We can ask some simple, mindful, and spacious questions. How do I know I'm breathing? What tells me? What in my body sensations are present that allow me to know I'm inhaling, I'm exhaling, I'm pausing. We start with the anchor, but our practice of mindfulness is really not about the anchor. It's about the awareness. So just for a minute or more, direct your attention to the anchor, which is the experience, the awareness of this embodied breath. Note when you want to change it. Notice when you want to adjust it, or even when you begin to critique it. And if the mind or attention strayed away from the breath, note how quick you may be to judge your mind. If we are to acknowledge that the mind will just dance around, move around, And this is not something we need to fix or adjust, but something to befriend. What then happens to our anxiety and our stress immediately? What instantly changes in our lived experience when that which is arising isn't an adversary anymore? Our mind's tendency to wander isn't a problem now. It's something we just embrace. So for another minute, rest your attention on the embodied experience of this breath. And note with curiosity and wonder what arises. So when the mind jumps to something else, it's not that we're turning away from it. We're noticing it. We're acknowledging it and coming back to this embodied breath. Now, the three core delusions, at least in Buddhism, are aversion, desire, and ignorance. Starting with actually desire, attachment. Note in this practice right now what you might be desiring, attaching to. We can note this whenever we give an experience an immediate valence, a tone that we call pleasurable, positive, enjoyable. Those things that we desire, those things that we attach to, we crave. Physically, we can often experience this as a leaning into it. We want it. But we often tighten up. So in the moment, can you notice those things you might be desiring, attaching, how you want things to be? Now, this isn't about austerity and getting rid of all pleasurable experiences. We're noticing that when we do not have those pleasurable experiences, we begin to crave them. So sit back, take a breath, be with this embodied breath, and see if you can begin to notice in the moment when you give things a valence, a tone of pleasurable, pleasant. We note this And then we practice just coming back to the root experience, the actual sensation, before we give it a tone of positive or negative, like or dislike. If you're like me, you're quick to note, ooh, that's uncomfortable in my leg. Why am I thinking that? And that speaks to the opposite of desire, of attachment, aversion. It leads to anger, pushing away. And that's connected to the valence, the tone of unpleasant. This is one of the reasons when in mindfulness meditation, you'll often hear instructors say when you have a physical experience, an ache, a pain, an unpleasant thought, before adjusting, before doing anything with it, simply witness it. Come back to the experience before the tone. Are you able to be with the experience without labeling it as positive or negative, pleasant or unpleasant? And all this from anchoring our attention on the embodied breath, identifying the multitude of sensations and thoughts that arise and interrupt, and how we're quick to judge. That judgment leads to pushing away or clinging. And all of this is connected to the other delusion of ignorance, of not seeing clearly. How many times do we say, this is the most important issue I'm dealing with in the world? And the moment it seemed quite important. Our own thoughts, our own worries, our own concerns are the most important thing in the world. And we're failing to see the whole picture. I recall finding a journal that I'd written some 15 years earlier. I found a whole passage, several passages about a disagreement, an argument with someone. And looking back at it, it was saying, who was this person again? Our reactions, our anxiety, our stress, our worry, our fears. We're not saying they're unfounded. But how do we see ourselves? How do we turn away from our suffering, our attachment, aversion, our ignorance, to find more peace. So bring your breath, bring your attention back to this breath. Rest in your entire body breathing. It's not about breathing properly, efficiently. How many times throughout our day are we breathing without even thinking about it? Can we step back and watch that process unfold? So as I said a moment ago, when we're doing mindfulness meditation, the training wheels are anchoring. We anchor to an object and realize so much arises. For the remaining moments of our practice today, can we sit in open, spacious awareness, what some call emptiness or choiceless awareness, where we let go of the anchor and simply witness the awareness. All that arises and all that falls away in our attentional field. We simply note. As with our delusions, we don't cling to any particular thought, sound, smell, sensation that arises. We don't push it away. And we don't make it the center of our universe. And when we do those things, which we will, we act with compassion and we smile. So let's take a moment just to sit in open, spacious awareness. As we slowly transition from this, before jumping up and rushing to the next thing, take a moment now. Let's reflect on what we did here today. Just like a gardener who is cultivating the garden, they don't grow the flowers, they cultivate it, they adjust, Oh, that plant might needs more sun, more water. I have to move this, give it more shade. Can we approach our day this way? Can we approach our day that when I notice the signs of attachment and aversion and ignorance, and I notice it in my stress and anxiety and fatigue and fear, rather than turn away from all of reality, can I understand my suffering? Can I notice the ways in which I'm attached, or averse, or ignorant? Can I take a moment to actually practice being present with the sensations without judging them? And always, always remember, if you or your nervous system assesses this is not safe, mobilize. We're never teaching complete collapse and surrender. It's a mindful engagement with our life. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for joining me. I'll be back on Monday at 7:30. And I dedicate this to all beings everywhere who are suffering or stressed. May all people everywhere be safe. May all people everywhere be healthy. May all people everywhere live in peace and with ease. And may all beings everywhere go gently, knowing their goodness. As always, I'd love to hear from you. If you have any comments or feedback or just thoughts about this, feel free to reach out to me at my website, thebreathspace.com. You can email me at drbrad, spelled out, at thebreathspace.com. Thank you for joining me.